Somebody say something too?
Hi, this is Matthew Talamini. I'm a writer in.
You,
Oh,
so Robert, you're playing last week's.
I
You're
saw
playing
that.
last week's.
I
Okay.
just switched to the live. Let's see what happens.
Okay. All right.
It's kind of loading up, and I'm expressing my inner logorrhea to make sure that we don't have silent time here.
The sidebar
All
currently
of my
says that
Logaria is entirely outer.
Nano has 2 of 9 hit points and 5 temporary hit points.
Matt, I'm seeing you,
yeah.
but there's no audio from you on the stream. Say something,
There's
please.
no audio from me. I am talking now, and tell me whether it comes through or not. Testing, testing. 1, 2, 3.
I can hear him on the stream.
Okay, great. Mine is spinning and somewhat frozen, so I'm going to just go with Dwight, your acknowledgement. Okay, let's get into it. I think we're in good shape, and maybe Dwight, if you're willing, if you can just listen in for just a minute and make sure that people are being heard through the intros, just in case there's any issue there. All right. This is The Dying of the Light, Season 3 of the Starfall Collective. The Starfall Collective is a collaborative storytelling group using the Dungeons & Dragons game system as a vehicle for creating rich and compelling stories in a fictional world that we've been developing together for a while. You can find out more about the collective as well as the stories we're telling at thestarfallcollective.com. We're back with a new
33?
episode. What was it?
33, maybe? You changed the ordering for the podcast, so it's going to be wrong.
Yeah, we're back with stream 33, but we're back with a new episode. Let's find out who's in this episode. I'm Sir Robert Burbridge, a father and entrepreneur, and I'm the host of this season's story and my occasional reminder that I have written the story, but I don't know what the players will do. And the players don't know the story, but they are in charge of what they'll do, and that's part of the fun. So with me tonight are those players playing the characters in this drama. Please say your name, something about yourself, if you like, and a brief description of the character you're playing. That'll get people used to your voice and, just acclimated to who you are and what's going on. Why don't we start with Aaron Joy? Or maybe Josh?
I think she has a big lag.
Interesting. That's a pretty
That's a
substantial.
really big lag.
I
You're
just
muted,
saw her
Aaron.
react.
No, it's not. I don't think it's a lag. I can't hear all the words. It keeps cutting out, so I missed it. I just happened to miss what I was called on.
Okay. Jacob, will you say something?
Hi.
Interesting.
Now you're both muted.
Yeah, you're both muted.
I think Aaron thought Jacob was going to use his microphone, so
Got
she
it.
muted herself.
I'm now unmute. Jacob is muted. Let's see how this goes.
Okay. So why don't you say your name, something about yourself, if you like, and a brief description of the character you're playing, Aaron Joy.
Okay. Hi. I'm playing Neno or Nanny or something along those lines. Nanny fits. She has a lot of experience with tiny kids. As she's been hanging out with this posse, she has stepped on the toes of each of them at least once in her just assumption that, of course, people do what she wants. She's the grandmother and the eldest, and she's used to all the younger people around her doing what she wants. But these are forgiving people, and we have moved on.
All right. And Josh?
Hi, my name's Josh. I am a software developer and Bigfoot enthusiast. You can find me talking about Bigfoot on the Bigfoot Society podcast with Jeremiah Byron. Tonight, I am playing Inkatink, a kinku, who is a kind of a raven humanoid. And he has many voices, but not one. And that has been a lot of fun.
And you've been doing a great job with that, Josh. That's hard to keep that up.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah,
My particular psychosis lends itself well.
fair enough. Jared.
I'm Jared. I'm playing Yoshka, who just released his first full-length album called A Quiet Walk in the Land of Oppression.
Got a killer background audio.
Okay, and he's a bard.
Yeah, a musician, performer.
Yeah.
And that's really has come out during the long, kind of peaceful time we've had.
Okay. Dwight.
Hi, I am Belvari, a human druid who's 16 years old.
Okay. And Belvari kind of keeps to himself a bit. He's been thrust into the big wide world against his will and a little bit as a surprise. So he's unsure of how he fits into this group, how the group fits into his world, and so forth, it seems to me.
Oh, that seems true.
Yeah. Jacob?
Aaron, you're muted.
One of y'all has to be unmuted.
I am muted, but I'm not talking.
We thought
So
maybe
I think that's
Jacob would
appropriate. Yeah.
share your mic. Is Jacob sitting with you?
Leave it unmuted.
Is
I can't
Jacob
make out anything y'all are saying.
is Jacob with you
Yes,
right
Jacob's
now?
here.
Okay, Jacob, why don't you go?
We can't make out what.
Oh boy.
That's got to be really frustrating.
Yeah, we're going to take a quick
Yeah.
pause right here. I'm going to switch them to a different Wi-Fi signal. Give me 1 sec. If you would like, Patrick and Matt, you can go ahead and do yours while I do that.
Yeah, I was going to say, what am I, chopped liver?
Not chopped yet.
Go, Patrick.
My name is Patrick. I am not chopped liver as of this very moment. I am playing...
Evolution!
We've come so far. I'm playing the half-orc Toll, who recently came into a quite interesting staff that maybe we'll get to see what it does this time, and maybe not. I don't know. We'll see what happens.
Patrick, you're a delightful cube steak to me.
Oh, thank you. Is a cube steak like a good cut?
Oh, in my book it is.
Okay.
And assuming the authority of Sir Robert, Matt.
Hey, my name is Matthew Talamini. I'm a writer and web developer based in Providence, Rhode Island, and you can find my stuff at MatthewTalamini.com. That's Matthew TALAMINI.com. I'm playing the shirtless wizard Diamondback. He's think of Mind Freak when you think of his appearance.
Chris Angel. What's the character's name in the Jim Carrey film? Oh gosh, yeah, but you've got a real anime goth ninja.
Make the mask face.
Yeah,
anime goth ninja.
Yoshka, do you have any questions for Diamondback that we could act out while they're
Yeah.
We can just do a scene.
And I could just set the stage by saying, so last episode, we had this long, strangely peaceful journey for a couple weeks, which is about as long as all of the other episodes we've had. It's longer than all the episodes we've had combined.
Mm-hmm.
So,
in terms of in-world time.
Yeah.
All right. I'm back. I think. Sorry for interrupting, but I think hopefully Aaron Joy and Jacob are set up. I switched them to different bands for the Wi-Fi, and I think they might have been interfering their computers. So, yeah. Sorry. Go finish what you're saying, Jared, and then I'll bring us into the episode.
So
actually, sorry, real quickly, Jacob, you didn't get a chance yet. Why don't you introduce yourself and the character you're playing? Both of y'all are muted.
Sorry.
Oh gosh.
And both of you are unmuted.
From the depths of the plains of
Hello?
Mecca.
Oh,
Hey, Aaron.
Whoever is unmuted needs to have their sound on, and whoever is muted needs to have their sound off.
Could you unmute?
okay. I've now unmuted.
Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay,
Go.
great. We spent 30 seconds, like a minute, just debating who should unmute. Anyway, my name is Jacob Burbridge, and I will be playing the character Orvin Roth Talad, and he has recently escorted some fine gentlemen and ladies into the underground tunnel place that he lives.
Okay. So let me do a quick intro, and then just because I'm tying it into what Jacob just said. Last episode ended with our party arriving after a long journey, arriving at what the Menowin, what Yoshka's tribe calls the Old Blood. In this case, the compound or the town or something of the Old Blood. The Old Blood we'll find out more about them in this episode, but they are descendants of somebody named Oravan, who was the first who found these caves in which they live and set up, shop, as it were. They refer to this place after him as an homage. So they call this place Oravan, just where they're from. And it's been some generations. We'll talk about that later. So Talad, as he calls him, it's Talad, right? Not Talad? Talad seems to has brought them down, and they had a quick introduction to the leader of Oravan. His name is Elephine, and they put them up in some guest quarters in this cave system that they live in. It's a town that they've been carving out for several generations, and the guest quarters that our party is in are comfortable. It's a stone house in the wall of some stone caves. It seems pretty comfortable, and that was where we left the last episode. However, we're going to backtrack at the beginning of this episode, though the listening audience will not notice that. The podcast audience will not notice it, nor will they have heard this part. Because we're going to fill in some of the details of the couple of weeks of travel between Miradau, where Garriott was helpful to them and they to him, and he sent them off, and they traveled for a few weeks here. Backstory to let you know why their travel was relatively peaceful after a relatively hard time. During the false night, you will remember they occasionally heard animals fighting and wildness happening, and they also heard, whenever they heard that, they heard creaking of trees and crazy things happening, followed usually by an uneasy silence. It sounded to them as though the trees were generally hostile to the other creatures. Also, the party noticed that the trees, some of them at least, became ambulatory. They were able to move, and generally from where the party was, they were traveling westward and southwestward, as were lots of other plants. Why were they traveling that way downstream? Nobody knows. Nobody here is sure. Although they might speculate tonight. I don't know. Speculate. But so during the course of that long night, which lasted for what would normally be days, a lot of animals seemed to die. Also, probably almost every person who was not in a town, at least based on the party's experience of what it was like to be in the wilderness at night. When day broke the next after the long night, the forest was silent, and the party got on their way. And as a matter of fact, over the course of their couple of weeks of travel, at first there were lots of carcasses of animals around. Those became too putrid to get near, and then they continued decomposing. And it took a while, but by the time they were towards the end of their journey, either they crossed into a place where there were more creatures, maybe the false knight had been only marginally there, or else perhaps more creatures had crept in from far away to fill the ecosystem and, start repopulating over the course of a couple of weeks. Either way, in their trip between Miradau and Orevan, they did not encounter much peril. It was abandoned places everywhere they went where they found a place. Small places. They didn't come across any towns, and there were dead animals and normal plants. So let's get into our discussion of the party's experience of these couple of weeks. Aside from finding some goodies, which is to say, some magical items and some interesting equipment, and their strangely returned compatriot Toll, who had a curious adventure, perhaps in a tree, maybe. Let's talk about their experience, and I'd also love to get the party's experience of Toll returning the way he did. We saw a little bit of that from Diamondback, but I'll let y'all kind of go into that, including maybe what Toll conveyed to them about how he was in a tree a few weeks north of them. All right. Jared, why don't you kick us off? Get started.
Well, we could start with that. Just, Toll comes out of the tree, and one of us would have said, "Oh," as we were walking along, where did you go? What happened?"
Well, you might think I'm crazy, but I suppose I'll tell you. I heard somebody saying my name when we were walking through the portal, and I poked my head through to see what it was, and I entered some sort of trance-like, dream-like state, with all these different scenes that felt vaguely familiar, and I ended up in a room with a man who offered me several gifts. I had to pick one, and I felt drawn to this wooden staff. And the man seemed to know things about me that, well, it doesn't make it any stranger than it already was, I suppose.
What did he look like?
Sir Robert, he was like elderly, right?
Yeah, anytime you want for any of this, by the way, guys, just I'm happy to fill in blanks. Would you like me to describe him, Toll, or do you want to?
Sure.
Okay. Yeah, he was an elderly man, not extremely elderly, not in his, not decrepit in any way, but he was certainly older than most people that you see. He was sitting down when when Toll got to him, and was clean shaven in spite of being elderly, had white hair, and wasn't frail, but also was not super nimble. He had a little bit of that slowness of motion that comes with that. Some of you, let's see, let me tell, I think, Toll, do you remember if you asked his name or if he told you his name?
I don't think I did, and I don't think he offered it.
Okay, great. Then I will not say it. And so, yeah, he was an old man in a building. I'll let you describe the building how you like, or any of that stuff.
You're muted, Toll.
Yeah, sorry, say that again.
I'll let you describe the rest of the building, the room you were in, anything about the equipment, anything about the guy past that, if you'd like.
Okay. There were also some strange lighted fixtures on the wall that seemed to be... So the way you described it, it sounded like it was stained glass, but like I wouldn't know what stained glass was.
Why don't I read my description, and then that'll let the audience remember, and then you can tell them. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Okay. I think it's it's not there. Hold on.
In a voice eerily similar to Sir Robert's, Patrick says,
That's right. Exactly.
In a nightmare landscape where people aren't even literate and the trees come alive to tear you to shreds. See if you can sleep tonight after hearing about the Starfall Collective dying of the light. That was a little Halloween intro for you.
So that's right. So Toll, here's what you remember. I'm going to say this to you, Toll, and then you can convey what you like.
Okay.
You seemed like you were in a dream, and you woke up from the dream, and you got up from this hewn wooden bench that you were laying on and looked around the room that you're in. Your feet touched down on a similarly hewn floor, and you stood up and looked around. You were in a smallish hall that had about a dozen rows of the same low-backed benches. A broad aisle ran down the center of the hall, and light of every color streamed through the walls. The walls seemed to be inset with some kind of gem or magic panels or you know not what, making ornate patterns and shapes. The illuminated panels made these ornate patterns or shapes. The hall was dappled with greens and blues and reds and oranges of every color as light spilled into the room from these panels. The old man sat on a raised section of the floor at the far end of the hall.
This place, it seemed like a gathering place, like a place where people would come and hear an orator speak. And this man was seated at the raised part where the orator would speak. And there were miraculous colors coming through some sort of gem or something like that in the wall. It's hard to say what it was exactly.
I think Inkatink hands Toll a couple of components for minor illusion.
Oh.
And Inkatink, Toll, Patrick, our party has sometimes had the convention of using minor illusion because you can create little pictures with it, of creating almost like holograms. Here, hold on. Dwight, if you'll hold off on that for a little bit because Jared's laughter, it'll be in the audio intermittently. So, while I appreciate the thing, or Jared, if you want to mute while you're
I can mute, yeah.
enjoying the light show. But so Patrick, they sometimes will make little, basically like magical representations of what they saw to the best of their ability. It won't always be a photo; it'll be from their memory. Anyway, that's why he handed you the components.
Okay, yeah, I will assume what they mean or what Inkatink means and crush them and cast minor illusion to draw the wooden interior of a building with several rows of benches all pointed towards this upraised area where the old man is sitting. And I will also draw on wherever these gifts were put, I will draw the staff, and it was a sash and one more thing. What was the other thing?
I'm not helping on this part. The image you remember is
okay. That's fair. That's actually fair. Okay. There was a third one. I don't remember what it was, but
I tried to tell you, Patrick, Rufinol is not a good D&D party drug.
Well, you know, I did hear my name through a portal. Perhaps that was the roofie kicking in early, but
yeah.
But surely,
go on.
Surely, this was a real place, as real as the staff. This gives me some hope, and I hope we can remember this place. If there were more doors like this could be to our advantage.
Even the door that was like that isn't like that anymore.
I am not convinced this is a real place. Diamondback would like to delve deep into his wizardly knowledge using some form of history or religion check, possibly, or investigation to see if he knows anything about what the thing that Tull has presented is.
Okay,
I
Matt,
can't.
tell me a couple of points of information so I can set your DC.
Mm-hmm.
One, would Diamondback ever have encountered a teleportation circle before?
Yeah.
Would he have moved through?
Diamondback would know some lore,
Sorry, wait.
some very ancient lore about them.
Sorry, wait.
And
Something's crackling. What is that?
Oh, that's me typing. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. Go ahead.
That was real loud. Diamondback would have some probably fuzzy and ancient lore about all sorts of magical information that the Snake clan was illegally keeping down through the generations and hiding.
Okay.
Also, you allowed me to take down the sigils from Garriot's teleportation circle.
Yeah, absolutely.
So he has a working knowledge of how teleportation circles work and a collection of at least one set of glyphs for them.
Okay. And then also tell me about Diamondback's religion. Briefly.
Diamondback's religion is very focused on death. The Snake clan is they're super cool assassins. They make their living off of killing people. They perceive the line between life and death to be extremely thin, and their religion is based on sort of the sense that we can control death and life and pass freely back and forth between them.
And not that it would necessarily be formal, but for followers of the Starfall Collective for a while, from an outside perspective, what kind of religion is this? More of Karen or more of,
I don't know if we've established a god of death. It's definitely not Karen.
Okay.
But it is some sort
Probably
of
not Oberon.
chthonic. Yeah, it's not any of the gods that we've encountered so far.
Okay. Would you?
You'll find out soon.
But I think that they would consider gods and spiritual beings as being not significantly different from them.
And
having mastered life and death.
Mm-hmm. Last thing about that. Well, yes. And last thing about that is, would they consider what they do as far as attempting it, as far as necromancy, to be orderly in the sort of alignment, chaos, order versus good, bad? Would they consider themselves to be doing something ordered between life and death, like a structure, destructure, or they consider it to be more of the natural order is to go, things go towards death, and they are a little bit chaotic because they can pull things back?
No, they're very orderly. They're merchants of death.
Okay. And therefore of life.
Who have explored the adjacent technologies of their craft.
Okay. That sounds good. So I just had to get a sense of where Diamondback's coming from in order to see what he would know. And I would like for you to give me Diamondback in that case. Give me a history check with a DC 15, and the result of this is going to inform me of your Arcana check DC.
Okay, excellent. Oh, ouch. That's going to be an 8.
An 8? Okay.
History check of 8.
I'm going to
the
give
Ocho.
That's right. ESPN 8. We're going to use a Arcana check of 23.
Oh, goodness.
From the 8.
Okay. Here's the Arcana check. That's going to be an Arcana check of 6. Diamondback is very confused. he's not sure that he's in the real world right now because the real world is very full of danger and this world is not. And so he's wondering whether he's not a butterfly who's dreaming that he's Diamondback, or possibly Diamondback dreaming that he's a butterfly.
Hey, let me offer an alternate interpretation that you can reject, Matt. Does that sound good?
Okay.
All right. Maybe Diamondback has a suspicion that he is currently experiencing a mirror of life that is death. He may think he's dead. Or everybody died in the portal, and the portal took them into a death place.
Yeah.
I don't know. I just thought it'd be interesting. Here's what you do know for sure, based on those very low rolls, for the DCs I was setting. As you hear Toll talking about what he experienced, you remember some of the interesting and strange things the children of your clan used to say to one-up each other in their knowledge. And the ideas you have swirling about this are about that reliable, probably.
Got it.
I'll give you one example. I remember being in second grade and telling other kids that germs could travel really fast. They could travel 1 mile in the time it takes to say.
You
True
would
story.
spread such lies.
I got that from the CDC. Anyway, so let's go. Let's
Okay.
jump into it.
Basically during this time, after just a couple of days, you guys notice Yoshka starts to look younger and is more playful and asks you guys a lot more questions. And you can tell, oh, this guy deals kind of his wear is in trading stories and lore and songs, and he sets aside a special time at night. So imagine if you've ever been hiking all day long, you sit, there are few pleasures greater than just sitting down and getting off your legs. And so there's kind of the relief that we all experience together where it's dark and we've got a nice cozy fire and we sit down and maybe we eat our food, and Yoshka, you come to expect the same question from him every night. Okay, who has a story tonight? Ned, Aaron, you were the only one who mentioned having one. Would you like to start sharing yours?
Happy to. If we have sound problems, it's also recorded, so we can replace this with that in whatever magic happens later. So Nino sits, and in the way of old ladies everywhere, starts telling her story. And she starts with her old lady voice, but it rapidly loses her timbre and becomes the tone in which stories are told. And the first story she tells is, she says, this is the story of the strong man. Once a strong man was taken by the bell. He ran, he fought, they won. And they bound him, not with iron, but with something as strong, in shackles from foot to foot. He could shuffle, but could not run and could not fight. They took him where they take them, and he went shuffling. And then one night, the night came and stayed, and the bell died, and the strong man lived. And when the light came, he shuffled to the nearest town, and then the next nearest, and next, and eventually to home. Oh, how they lauded him. Who escapes the bell? Our own strong man, our own strong man. They jumped and danced. He stood, and he went back to his hearth with his wife and his little ones. As the days and weeks came, one stepping right after the other, the whole village tried to break the shackles, but couldn't. And the next village tried, but couldn't. And the next. And as the years passed, the strong man continued to live and work the ground and to toil with his arms and his back, and to lift with his oak tree legs, but the shackles stayed. And one day, when his children had strong arms and backs and legs of their own, the strong man walked into the woods and stayed there overnight. When the townfolk came out to find him the next morning, they found a strong oak tree of a man on his knees, with his eyes raised toward the canopy, and his mouth opened in a smile, and no breath on his lips, and free. And then Nino closes her eyes and just rolls over and throws a skirt or blanket over her face. The story is over. She's done for the night, and now she's asleep.
I thought that would end happier.
It's a hard world.
I think
Jared, you're muted.
That was great, Aaron Joy.
Yeah, thanks. That was cool.
You're excellent at that.
Yeah.
So, Patrick, what did you say?
Toll said, I thought that would end happier.
I think Inkatink, looking around and seeing everybody feeling rather kind of emotionally, impacted by that, like it's a weighty, a heavy thing. He pipes up and, in the voice of Christopher Walken, tells a not terribly skillful, very blustery telling of a children's story set to song, and not particularly well, but not terribly. But so you realize over the course of the next couple of weeks that Inkatink trots out a half dozen of these little performances in the voice of this older, very vain, blustery kind of man who, I guess you gather, must have been some kind of bard or performer or something, because he's telling the kinds of stories that you would tell at an inn or a tavern.
And over time, Josh, you mentioned on our Slack that Inkatink, during this time when we're all sharing stories, night after night after night, I am imagining Yoshka would be drawn especially to Inkatink and Neno, since just my intuition is that they would have be more some of the first to share. But so please jump in, Diamondback, Belvari, and Toll, and correct me if that's wrong. But one thing, that one kind of unfolding of things would be once Inkatink reached the end of his stories and then loop back around to one that had already been told, Yoshka would be a little disturbed by that and start asking questions. I'm just going to speak at a higher level so we can gloss over a little bit more, but we can dive into more specific conversations if you guys want. But
Sure.
he would start asking questions like where you're from and what your people are about, and basically trying to feel out, like, are you a man or are you a monster?
So probably only someone as patient and persistent and stubborn as Yoshka would even really attempt this, because conversation's very difficult with Inkatink. You ask him some questions and he just kind of sits there, and you can see him get a little frustrated, but he doesn't know what to say. And he never speaks to you in a sentence from his own voice. He never just says a phrase or makes a whole sound. Every now and then he'll say something exactly sound for sound, note for note, a quote of something that Diamondback said, or something that Nino said, or even Belvari once. And Belvari, I'm sure, is frustrated by the fact that Inkatink can reproduce his voice. But I'm just kidding. Dwight, you can tell me how Belvari feels about that. But yeah, he only quotes the sounds that he hears other people say. And when you ask him about his own people, he he will look away and simply leave the conversation.
Okay.
Yeah.
So just to summarize this eventual unfolding, Yoshka would be fairly disturbed by that and kind of have this feeling that it's almost like he's not a person. It's almost like there's not a person there. It's like a pile of things other people have said tied all together or something like that. So I think eventually over this time, Yoshiko would be a little more visibly uneasy. Okay, but so I'll mention one. So the first few nights of this time, Yoshika would, after anybody had told their stories, he would sing a song or tell a story, and the first few nights would be just fun songs to lighten the heart. That like there's one that I put on Slack, which you guys can listen to if you want, but I didn't want to spend 15 minutes singing a bunch of songs that I have written. And you can, if you guys think you want to put it in the episode, it should be easy to insert. But Scat, he kind of sings looking at Diamondback more than anybody else. It's like a really fun, joking song.
An ode to Yat,
Yes.
or to Diamondback's view of Yat.
And to anyone who doesn't resist, at the end, even Yoshka, everybody is crying, laughing, with their sides aching. Go ahead.
If there's any song that is intended to remind you of lost loved ones, as soon as that emotional resonance starts to kick in, you will find Diamondback no longer in the circle of the firelight and off away from the group somewhere else.
Okay.
A note for our list. Sorry, go ahead. You go, Jared.
You might roll a wisdom check then, because
a wisdom saving throw.
A wisdom saving throw. So just to explain to Toll, Yoshka as a bard has this thing. I had this dream where a tree lady taught me this song, and I can see. The tree lady said, "If you sing this song, whenever you're singing another song, it will have the magic of the woods in it." And so people have this experience of his songs being like better than they should be.
Diamondback's wisdom saving throw to resist this enchantment, whatever it is a 21.
Okay. So you definitely back off. I would say so Yoshika's playful probably the first week, like on the trail he would be warming his hands on your fire, the mantle on your back, and making up a little song like, "A fire that's good for cooking is never as good looking. When seeking for applause, he always eats it raws." With like a bad rhyme at the end to kind of take the teeth out. And he would probably challenge Toll to a wrestling match, like a good-natured one. How would Toll respond to that?
Are you sure that is what you desire?
Only if we place bets. Come on, who's in? And he looks around.
And Toll is a half orc for our listening audience to remember. He is a half orc and as one of my children in particular would say, a beefy boy.
He's a beefy boy.
Inkatink walks up, flashes a copper, and points at Toll.
Would anybody else kind of get involved in friendly betting, or come on, we can bet who has to cook the meal if you don't want to give up something.
Toll would want to bet on himself, but he wouldn't want to, he feels like that would be kind of rude.
No, I'll take that.
Nino isn't into the betting, but is happy to commemorate the winner in an embroidery on her skirt.
Diamondback offers to judge the contest.
Okay.
And I
I
guess
will referee the contest, and as such, it would be unfair for me to bet.
Inkatink busts out some spells and starts like using Mage Hand to clear the clearing, and using like prestidigitation and lights to create a little wrestling arena with lights hanging over it.
Diamondback scratches a circle in the dirt with his knife.
You hear the screams of crowds of hundreds of people coming out of Inkatink's mouth.
And Yoshka, who's maybe 5'9", 5'10", not very tall, but pretty fairly stocky. Maybe you would guess 180 pounds.
A porky boy.
He takes off his he has this fur vest that he takes off, and he takes off his shirt, and he throws his shirt and vest on the ground, and then gives his hat to maybe Belvari standing if somebody's nearby. What does
We
Toll
can't hear
look
you,
like?
Aaron.
You
Aaron,
need to
you're
unmute.
muted.
Aaron, you have to unmute. Aaron, you have to unmute.
She might be talking to Jacob.
Oh, okay.
She might be talking to somebody else.
So, Toll, Yoshka, if this is shirts versus skins, Yoshka volunteered to be skins. How does Toll get ready for this?
Can probably be pale versus green.
That's right. How does
green versus white?
How does Toll get ready for this epic brawl?
Toll will remove his scale mail armor, but then he'll remove his weapons and stuff, but he'll keep all of his clothes on. And
As you remove the scale mail, Yoshika says, "Oh, gentlemen, I see. Very good." And could you just give a description of Toll? I can't recall what he looks like.
I think I said he was 6 feet, but I think I'd like him to be like 6'3", because that seems more half orcish. So he's 6'3". He's got like decently long black hair. It hasn't been cut because he was a slave not that long ago, and he kept it while everybody was with Garriott.
And remember, I don't know, Patrick, I'm not sure if you were actually here for this part. I described the slaving practice of the slavers who took you, not the Iron Bell, but the Orc Town. One of the things they did is they used like an awl or some kind of tool, and they split the earlobes of slaves, one earlobe. So your left earlobe is split in half on the bottom, and they would have shaved at least part of your head, but they never would have shaved it again. It would have just been, it may have been growing back for however long you've been a slave.
Okay, yeah, we'll say like shoulder length hair.
Okay.
And a split earlobe and 2 small tusks protruding from either side of the bottom of his mouth.
Okay, first rule: no biting.
Agreed.
Also,
okay.
there shall be no gouging and no blows below the waist and above the knees.
Sounds good. I want us both to be able to have children after this.
I feel like Diamondback would probably say, "Don't worry about making it to the death. He could take care of it."
Yeah. Do I have your consent to make use of your body? Sorry.
No. They have a strong tradition of training exercises. This falls well within. It's not profitable to kill people during practice bouts.
So I'm not sure what the rules are on
Contested
wrestling.
strength check.
Okay, I have this
Or no,
grappling.
our DM should say.
I have this grappling pin school. Does everybody have that?
Oh,
That
what?
is a thing that anyone can attempt. There are feats and abilities that let you do it better, but anyone can attempt to do that.
Okay.
Yeah. So actually, Yoshka, so you have this grappler feat that not everybody has, and you can read your description of what that is. Basically, it gives Yoshka advantage on grappling in particular, though the wrestling could also be pugilistic, right? There could be blows in it, which would be not grappling exactly. Yoshka, my guess is, since your charisma is you're a charisma guy and your dex is pretty high, you're kind of you tell me, but I would guess you're in the sort of vein of Muhammad Ali, a sort of, distract and get their attention off and, try to take advantage of that. Whereas Toll probably is more of a use his strength and prowess at wrestling, his constitution and strength. You decide. You tell me what that is. But here's what we're going to do. We're going to do a contested. It is going to be a contest, but it does not have to be strictly strength. I'll let each of you choose how you're going to approach the battle, and then we'll contest some things out of that. One thing each.
Yeah, I'll do dexterity. That sounds good. Because I'm 5'8", he's 6'3", he's beefy. Like, he weighs a lot more than me, right?
Mm-hmm.
What do you look like you weigh, Patrick?
I would say Toll is like easily 250.
Okay. Woo. Yoshiko would be dancing around, like light-footedly, getting ready. Like, okay, let's just try to make each other lay down. No punching or kicking, all right?
Toll is gonna stand there calmly, stretching, getting all of his stretches in, letting Yoshika know he's done this before.
Punching and kicking is permitted as long as it's within target areas.
So, and let's do 3 rounds. When it's
Yeah. Also, Yoshika's gonna make a little show of taking his component pouch and say, "Goodbye, vicious insults," and hand them to Diamondback while he does this with bare hands.
Yes,
and
no
just to
magics.
let everybody know, remember, Yoshika is a bard of the school, as it were, the way of thinking of glamour. So he's into putting on a show for this. We're gonna do 3 rounds, and I'm gonna let you guys pick what you're gonna contest against each other off of what I give you. Toll, go ahead and pick either strength, constitution, or where constitution means you're going to try to be like just able to resist, his blows or anything like that, or strength or constitution for this first round. Yoshka, you can do either sleight of hand, because you're talking about dancing all around, being all crazy wise. Probably sleight of foot in this case, but either sleight of hand or strength.
Real quick before they start, Diamondback is going to use 1 charge of detect magic on himself, so as to be able to detect any cheating by magical means.
And decrement your spells, but yeah, go for it. So Toll, what do you think? You want strength or con? And Yoshika, what do you think? Do you want sleight of hand or strength?
By strength, do you mean a straight strength check or something like athletics?
Yeah, actually, you know what? Athletics makes good sense here. So,
I'll go for athletics.
Okay, great. And Toll, what would you like? What would you like to do? It can be athletics or strength or whatever.
I'll do con.
Okay.
Full strategy is going to be to just let him tire himself out.
Good. A little bit of cool hand Luke going on.
It's like he doesn't even move. He just kind of stands there while Yoshika climbs around on him. Jungle
right.
Gym!
Let's do it. Round 1. Fight!
Okay.
Cool.
And so,
Damn.
do I get advantage because I have this grappling thing?
If you're going to try to grapple him, you can do that. That'll be a different thing than using your athletics or whatever.
Okay. Is grappling... It's not a skill check thing. Okay.
It is.
I would probably play to my strength, and if grappling is an option, I would do that.
I don't actually exactly know how grappling works in combat. Let me read it real quickly. Why don't y'all
Me neither.
Why don't you do the first round just with your dancing around, your athletics, Yoshika, against his con, and I'll read the grappling while you do this.
Okay.
I rolled an 8.
18.
All right, so here's what happens. Toll, you're stalwart, but man, Yoshka is moving. He fights like a butterfly and stings like a bee or whatever. And what you end up seeing happen is Yoshka does literal circles around Toll, who just watches him calmly and patiently. Toll is looking for a moment to grab, to, take Yoshka down. However, in this particular case,
I also, when I come around behind him, I smack his bohunkus and say, "Is that allowed?"
and indeed, his bohunkus gets smacked.
I will allow it.
The laughter as of a crowd of 100 people erupts out of Inkatink's mouth.
If a gray-skinned half-orc could blush, he would be blushing.
He gets greener.
Yes.
So yeah, basically that happens, and a little bit flustered by by Yoshka's antics, and Toll is more used to a serious fight, but a little bit flustered by the antics. Yoshka actually moves in for a quick feint, and Toll grabs at him. Yoshka pulls away, expecting that, and in this particular case, is able to wrap his arms around Toll's torso and then sweep his legs, and he's able to land on him. Toll's not hurt or anything, maybe a little in the pride, but round one goes to Yoshka on an 18 versus 8. All right. Let's do round two. Or y'all can react to that, and then I'll tell you round two.
Inkatink looks over at Diamondback.
I give him a hand up.
Diamondback's probably going to declare the...
Yeah, the round. He declares the round for Yoshka.
All right.
Inkatink makes the sound of pieces of wood knocking against each other.
And this time, we're going to do round two. The way grappling works is you'll have advantage on it, Yoshka. But the way it works is it just says... using a free hand, you try to seize the target by making a grapple check instead of an attack roll. So you can use an athletics check on your side, Yoshka, with advantage because you have that feat. Contested by the targets, either athletics or acrobatics, their choice.
From the WRAL Weather Center.
Wow, my phone just started talking. Hold on. All right, you didn't hear that. Toll, you get to choose either an athletics or acrobatics check. And it's just a straight contest for that. That's all we're going to do. We're not going to do escaping from it and whatever. It's going to, if you're successfully able to. Toll, you, however, Yoshka, that'll be what you try. And the other part of this is going to be, let's see. I was just looking at your... You know what you can do? You actually have a... you have proficiency, but it doesn't... Oh, you know what? It just increased it to 0. Okay, because of the thing. Great. Okay, that's all. Toll, if you do happen to roll a 20 on yours, I'll let you kick in with Savage Attack, but it won't be actually Savage because you're not fighting. It'll be like a clear victory type of thing. That's if you get a critical hit. All right, y'all want to do it?
Sure.
All right, Toll, don't hold back on me now. I know you were going easy.
You don't want that.
Okay, so I start dancing around him again and see if he engages me or lets me go behind him and what?
Belvari surreptitiously, he looked like he wasn't paying attention, but he surreptitiously makes the ground around Toll difficult terrain.
Does he use magical means to do that?
Yes.
DM, what should I roll to detect it?
Do you have Detect Magic on?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. You said that from before. I'll give you a advantage on a DC 10.
A DC 10 Arcana check?
A DC 10 Perception with advantage.
Okay. Here we go then. Wait, Perception. Oh, great. Oh, Wait, I have advantage. That's an 11.
You got it. You noticed it.
Diamondback approaches Belvari and says, "What are you up to, you sneaky
You
dog?"
just know that there's magic. You don't know that it was me.
Right.
You don't know me.
Diamondback steps into the center of the ring and separates the two, if he can. And he says, "There's foul play afoot.
Huh?
Somebody is using magic to sabotage the match." And what do you guys do?
I'll step back from that.
Yeah, Toll will step back.
And Toll, as you
Diamondback-
step back from that area, you notice the ground is uncomfortable to walk on. It's difficult. Just around you.
Somebody
Yes,
seems
this
to be
is-
adjusting the odds.
Somebody perhaps who put a bet on the match. Let us adjourn to another circle over this way, and I'll lead them off a little ways and draw another circle on the ground.
Inkatink rolls his eyes and starts pulling out more components and redoes the circle of fire around the outside. And you see the dancing lights move over and settle over these guys.
Diamondback's eyes are like narrow, like he's kind of mad and looking at Neno, looking at Inkatink and Belvari like, "What are you scoundrels trying to pull?"
If he looks at Inkatink like that, Inkatink will like do a double look and be like, "What, me? What? Me? What?"
Yeah, I think
Me?
there's a lot of what meing.
Yeah.
All right, let's get to it. Let's roll. Yoshka, your... What was it? Athletics?
Yeah.
Against... You get to pick athletics or acrobatics, Toll.
I'll do athletics.
Okay.
So,
Wow.
is it... Tell me again what that was. Oh, I guess it doesn't matter, but I got a 17.
And
I got a 5.
Youch.
so Toll, one of the things that happens here, Yoshka rolls a 17 on his attempt to grapple. Toll rolls a 5 on his attempt to resist. This could have been anybody's match, but I think what Toll may notice here is that Yoshka's actually several years older. He's got that... he's not... So Toll, I think you're right. You're like 17, 18?
Toll's like 20.
20, okay. And Yoshka, I think you're 23? Is that what I remember?
Something like that, yeah.
Ballpark. So maybe, Toll, I'm not sure how you would rationalize this, but basically, Yoshka does his dancing around, and you're expecting, Toll, a good 30 seconds like it was before and all this stuff, but 4-5 seconds into the dancing around, unexpectedly, Yoshka just goes straight for you and catches you off guard, and he manages to grapple you and gets an arm behind you, gets you on the ground, and good-naturedly ribs you about his being able to get you down twice quickly.
If possible, I will try to start braiding his hair while I have him down. If I can flip him and start braiding his hair, and even if I get one cross, I'll call it a victory and then back off and say, all right. Okay, well, unless you guys want to say anything more about that, I'll zoom back out and
Yes.
say, like, okay.
Diamondback steps in and stands over Tall and looks at Yoshka and says, "Your victim is down and defeated. Scatter. The mission is over. Find a place to hide."
All the lights go out above. All the little flames around the fighting ring, they all snuff out, and it's just mist.
I'd like to hear from Toll.
Nino, amazingly, has been embroidering this entire time as though she knew what was happening. She holds up her skirt that looks like this. And then she drops the skirt, and it turns out that instead of being an angry, fierce man, it's a guy who's been dropped on his head.
Nice.
Oh, that's cool.
That's so awesome.
Oh. Neno's skirt, when she first showed them, appears to be a man, angry and powerful, but she's pulled one of her outer flaps of skirt up to do this, and they all see this powerful man, and he looks like he's radiating energy out of his head. But afterwards, she immediately drops it, and the image flips upside down. And instead of being a man powerful with power radiating from his head, it actually turns out to be a man dropped on his skull who's got little shock waves into the ground. I was just retelling that slightly because the picture for the audio. Good. Hey, listen, I would love to hear Toll's take on this, and then I have one thing to do for us before our break.
Toll's not too upset about it. He'll get up and shake Yoshka's hand and say, "You're only lucky that I spent most of my life around humans."
That's true. And it's bad luck for me that I bet on you. Here. And as I get my stuff back, I hand you one of the ice things that I got.
Diamondback says,
I'm not going to bet on you next time. And we need to
No,
do this
no.
again.
all bets are off. Both Yoshka and Toll lose, as Yoshka did not exit the battlefield quickly enough to avoid being captured.
Oh, I see how it is. Very well.
Inkatink makes a very pleasant little clucking noise, flicks the copper coin, and sticks it back in his own pocket.
Well, you don't have to accept Diamondback's weird little cultural assumption that all bouts end with the victor fleeing and hiding.
Inkatink's already put his coin back in his pocket.
Hey,
I don't think anybody bet against Inkatink.
Can y'all hear any rain or hail or anything near me from my mic?
Yeah, I hear like you're dropping a die or a coin or something on the table.
Okay, it just seems to be something hitting the roof. Maybe it's acorns. Okay, I was just checking to see if that would be on the audio or not, but we'll see what we can do. So let's say that this wrestling match happened one evening, and I'd like to bring that into a nighttime scene for you. Before I do that, I just want to let you know the sharp-eared listener will understand that your entire trip was not without distress. At some point in there, Yoshka mentioned that it's been a while since they've seen anything from the Iron Bell. And almost as though on a cue, they could hear tolling in the distance. It didn't seem to be coming direct. Sorry, real quickly. How loud is this on my mic? Can you hear the shh?
No.
Okay.
No, I can't hear anything.
Great. Just wanted to make sure. It's kind of loud for me. So almost as though on cue, Yoshka says that about the Iron Bell, and it turns out that they hear a tolling in the distance. The bell is not moving directly towards them, but it sets them all a little ill at ease. In particular, this happened about 2/3 of the way through your journey. So I'm going to give Jared one sec here. So it happened about 2/3 of the way through your journey that you heard the bell, which means if you were traveling for 15 to 20 days, then ballpark around 10 to 15 days in is when you heard the Iron Bell, and the last week of your travel, the last 5 to 7 days or so, would have been a little more tense. However that affected you, right?
Yeah. And that would have been during... So Yoshka kind of had 3... It didn't feel like this, but just for the listener, he kind of transitioned from fun songs at first just to open everybody up to, after a week or so, he got to some of the sad songs about about loss and dying. If you want to interject it, I recorded. There was one called "Gone, Gone, Gone." You guys will probably recognize it as us losing gold, but as he sang it, everybody kind of found themselves thinking about their own.
Can we hear it?
Yet, yes, I think probably to save time.
Is it in the audio that you sent?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll do that.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
And then during the third phase, he started talking about the future and looking around and asking questions like, what is the world like now? Have you ever been through a long night before? Do you think the Iron Bell's just totally dead, or are they still here and partly crippled? What can we do? And he starts telling his story about meeting the Menuhin Wayfarers. And he used to be part of, one thing that you are surprised to find out is his group of merchants was not just merchants, but also thieves and scavengers. And he tells these stories about, even as a child, like picking from dead, charred bodies as if it was nothing. And which is some of the way he lightly tells it is a little disturbing, but he starts talking about his kind of extended family meeting this very reclusive family who's like 4 generations old and is kind of the patrons of this northern region and sends secret gifts to some of the more honest villages like Garriots. And they're
Yoshka, when we come back, can we hear you tell a little of that?
Sure. Yeah.
And then we'll move back into Orovin.
Yeah.
Does that sound good? Okay.
Yeah.
Before that, let's during several of the nights during the course of your travel, this probably happened twice. You had a dream. Okay. Let's do some of that right now. I'm gonna talk about that, and Toll and Jacob may not remember how this works. Aaron Joy, you probably do remember. I think you were not there for some of the dream. Okay, here's how it's going to work. I'm going to narrate the dream that you're having, and I'm going to be asking you for rolls to roll, just a straight die roll. It's not a skill check or anything like that. You're asleep, and based on your rolls, if you are below the threshold, you will move into the DM chat so that you are not aware of the next part of the dream, but you're all having this shared dream, although you don't know it while you're dreaming. It's just you in the dream. Everybody ready? You have a die to roll? All right, let's do it. So you go to sleep some night. You're, in the woods, and this particular night, you're asleep without any major shelter. You have found a good place to sleep. Things have been pretty safe. You are not taking it for granted, but that you're going to be safe. But you are, safe, and you have a watch set. And as you cycle through the watch, each of you has this dream during your during the sleep. Sorry, let me get this. Okay. You fall asleep, and in your dream, you find yourself walking through the woods, and it feels as though... Sorry, I'm waiting for thunder to pass on my side.
I can't hear it.
Okay, great. I'll just pretend nobody can hear it. It feels as though you are in a familiar part of the woods, although you couldn't actually tell where in the forest you are. You wouldn't be able to say, this is near Miradau, or this is near my hometown, or even this is something I saw yesterday. It just feels familiar to you. Walking forward, you're not on a road or anything, but you see a clearing in front of you. It's 30, 40, 50 feet wide, and a little bit larger than most clearings that you would find. And you walk towards it. It's twilight. You think that it's probably just before the fall of night, though you don't have a sense of panic. You don't feel uncomfortable about that exactly. You would guess by the light that you've got another half hour, say, before it becomes night. In the clearing, in front of you as you walk into it, fireflies are coming up off the ground and disappearing. It's a fairly serene feel. You're finding yourself having a pleasant experience of an evening with a cool breeze and nothing particularly worrying you. Roll a DC 6 check. 6 and above and you stay.
6.
16.
14 for Toll.
Okay. Belvari looks like got lower than a 6. Neno, did you roll? Jacob, did you roll?
A DC what check?
6.
Just roll a d20.
Roll a 20-sided die, and a 6 or better stays.
Okay, thanks. And I'll roll. I got a 3, and I'll roll for Jacob now. 20.
20. Okay. Neno, you should go into the DM's chat. And Jacob, you can just ask Aaron Joy to roll for you again. I can see her rolls on D&D Beyond. So in this clearing, clearing, you look up and you see the canopy, and there are fireflies on the canopy as well. As a matter of fact, there's a hole in the canopy above you. This happens once in a while. It's not common, but it does happen that the trees around you have a bit of a hole. In the evening, you can look far, far up on these rare spots where the canopy is a little bit open, and you can see the great canopy way high above. It's so far away, you just see it as greens and browns kind of mottled. You look up, and there, to your surprise, in the hole of the canopy above you, 50, 60 feet above, there are fireflies rising from that canopy as well, as though it is its own firmament above you, as though there's a world there as well. You wonder at the nature of what would live on top of that canopy. Roll a DC 8.
Eight.
17.
All right.
17.
We lost somebody. Jacob. Nope, we lost Jared. All right.
Oh, I heard that thunder. Nice.
You gaze upwards, and you can make out the great canopy above. To your surprise, you can see detail there as well. And you've never heard of this before, but there's another opening in the great canopy. You're not sure exactly how, but somehow you can make out some details, even see the hole, even though it's so far above you. There are fireflies there as well. From this distance, the fireflies don't seem to move at all, but you can tell they're fireflies because they do that same kind of twinkling in the hole in the canopy. Roll a DC 10.
$10.
5 for Inkatink.
9 for Toll.
All right.
The final countdown. Do-do-do-do.
And it looks like it is Jacob and Diamondback and Talad. Talad, you're in your own home and having this strange dream as well. Your gaze you gaze downward again from way up high, and you see the clearing before you. It's grown dimmer, not quite dark, and floating in front of you is a glowing symbol, a glyph of some kind. It flickers white and blue with licks of yellow and orange. It seems to be floating before you, an ethereal symbol of you know not what. This one does not kick you out, but roll me a DC 18 to see if you recognize the symbol.
Oh, but can this be a DC 18 investigation check?
Just a straight 18.
I'm a wizard, though.
Not in your dreams, you're not.
Glyphs are my thing. Okay. 18.
All right. Jacob, did you recognize it? Or did you roll an 18? Did you roll anything? I'll roll for Jacob. I don't know if he can hear me. He rolled an 11. He did not recognize it. But Matt, I will tell you, you do recognize it, Matt. As a matter of fact, you recognize it from at least 2 places. It's not identical, but it's very similar to one of the symbols Garriott pointed out to you in Gulb's book. He said that he did not know what it meant, but that it was somewhat important, if you recall. You also recognize that same one as the symbol that you carry with you, that you carved from the flesh of Gulb the night he died again. Roll me a DC 12 to see if you wake up or not. I will roll for Jacob. He rolls an 11.
16.
All right. Just as the symbol before you flickers, you notice the twilight still has not faded to the familiar blackness of night. In fact, the entire forest is flickering. Your gaze drifts outward, and you notice that the yellow-orange flickers in the symbol are in the forest as well. In the distance, it appears that the forest is ablaze. Roll a DC 14.
Here it comes. Oh, that's a 9.
Okay. Let me get everybody back in. You guys can come back in now.
Good.
Yeah.
It sounds like we all could use an outlet like this.
You
know,
guys
it's like
can
we
come
don't
back
have
into the DM chat. I mean, to the live stream.
We don't have those fun
What's
school
up?
assignments
Oh,
anymore.
are you calling us back?
So, yeah.
Are we in the right room right now? No.
Is everybody back? No, we're still missing Belvari.
Are you on there?
I am.
I would like even to hear how that challenge manifests.
Oh, Johanna says
Like,
hi.
how does an Inca tank ask a Belvari anything?
Hey, Joanna.
Mime.
Wait, which way to go? Hi.
There's the camera.
Hello.
Hey, Johanna.
Hi, Matt. Hi, Josh. Hi, guys.
I.
Hi.
Um,
45. Okay, sounds good.
okay. I think we did not somehow...
Sounds like you're muted, sir.
Also, did we lose Belvari?
Yeah, we seem to have lost Belvari. Let me go grab him if I can. Hey, Dwight, if you can hear me, you can come back into the live stream.
Okay.
I stand corrected. Our small friend is
He's
still.
lost. He's just being sneaky.
So, y'all, everybody ready?
Yeah.
Ready, whatever. We're going to end this part for now. We'll take our 10-minute break. When we come back, we are going to hear what Yoshka told everybody about your anticipated place of arrival when you get to the Old Bloods' dwelling, their home, their village, whatever he calls it. And then we will, at that point, fast forward actually to Oravan and have our encounter there. So 10-minute break. We'll be back at 9:15.
in my mind, but I didn't want to freak everybody out. There we go.
Does that make sense of the proportions?
Yeah. A rectangular prism.
Yeah, it's a little narrow. It's almost like a cigarette holder. Toll, what were you gonna say, Patrick?
Oh, I was gonna ask if Inkatink could actually like make a fully functional replica if he had the materials for it.
I don't think that Josh or Inkatink would know the answer to that question, whether it would be fully functional. He could make an exact replica of the material parts and everything.
Yeah.
I don't know if there's anything arcane to its construction.
There is
Yeah, that's a
arcane
good point.
elements. He could make a mechanical replica
Replica.
that does all of the moving parts, but he wouldn't be able to make potions.
Gotcha.
Sir, you said that we put our, and then we got distracted by definitions of relics. Nope.
Uh-huh.
Anyway, you said it was in D&D Beyond. Where am I looking?
So in your D&D Beyond, open your inventory. Wow, that was here.
Hey, I heard that right after I heard it on your side. It must be closer to you.
Huh.
Makes sense for the amount of water that's dripping into our garage. Just kidding. That doesn't not relevant at all. Neno, Aaron Joy, if you go to your inventory, remember that little wooden box you found that y'all had to pry open?
Yes.
It had 2 potions in it, a potion of speed and a potion of invulnerability.
I've forgotten that there were 2. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and there they are, just right at the top of your equipment.
Okay. Thanks.
Yeah. All right, let's get back into it. And also, just for you guys to know, I'm going to dice up this last segment that we just did. Not dice it, but I'm going to splice it into the last week's episode so that it flows properly when we get there. Good. Let's jump back in. I'm going to pretend as though this was not on the live stream, and through my feats of prestidigitation, we are going to
Yoshka is looking with Inkatink on the stretched mammoth leather. Yoshka, Inkatink, and Neno especially have been working on this project to try to create a map of the region, not the region they're in, but the region they used to be in, trying to piece together all their knowledge of geography. And Inkatink, with his mimicry, has proved his hand to be best at placing things so other people feel like, yeah, that's about where that waterfall was, or those that really big willow tree was. And he looks up and sees, let's say, Toll bringing in some firewood, and Yoshka has a black eye on this day because he and Toll have continued. He's actually been Toll, interrupt if this would not be Toll, but he's been training Toll in wrestling and trying to encourage Toll to get some free man skills, as he calls them, now that he's not a slave. And so he's been training him in wrestling. And then as they sit down, Yoshka says, "Well, I think it's time for me to tell my story." And then he looks over and says, "But first, I think we need a song. Belvari, will you play me a beat? A tribal beat?" Belvari just so Belvari starts his rhythm, and then he goes over to Inkatink and asks Inkatink to hum this kind of tribal, like home, 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 and he sings this song, "Gone Again, Hunter," which it's is on the Slack. You guys can insert it into the podcast if you want. But this song is significant in that it is about Belvari and trying to make sense of him, and the magic that is woven in this. I'll this is this I think this is going to be significant for us as a group. So I'll just read some of the lyrics without singing it. Did we find him? Did he find us? He was already there when we met him. Where's the boy, the lion in the grass? Is he here? Is he gone? I forget. Is he a lion or is he a lad? Gone, the hunter found his track. I'll skip some. If you want a word, he is nowhere found. This we must concede. But come some trouble, and we see his mane. He is here indeed. Is he a boy that can turn to a lion, or a lion that a boy's form takes? Lay at our feet. Sleep as you will. We will watch out for snakes. And the song ends, and everybody just kind of feels like maybe they don't articulate at the time, but they just kind of feel more like, yeah, he's if he's a lion, he's found his pack here. And Belvari, if he did not resist it or leave while he was playing the drums, which was designed to keep him here throughout the whole song, finds himself smiling and something like purring. And then, okay, I just had to. I thought that was important to set for going forward, and hopefully Belvari will hear that at some point. Yoshika says, "Okay, so let's. I think I already told you guys about being a wayfarer. He's probably this is the end of the trip. He's told you a number of stories about his extended family. It's like his dad was the leader. There was his uncle who was the main merchant. There were 2 other uncles with their families and 3 aunts with their families. And as a child, this one aunt would always tell him stories and kind of normalize the horror that a child in this world would see. And like kind of recontextualized in this way that may have put him out of touch with reality. Um, and then eventually his dad met the old blood. They reached out, and we had actually already found a few gifts just pop up in some of our wagons, and we didn't know what to make of it. And we were concerned, like, did somebody steal or like try to force a trade that we weren't willing for and take something and leave something? Eventually we found it was these people who showed themselves to us, the old blood. And over a period of about 5 or 10 years, trust was developed so that the Menowin group of wayfarers that we were with became like the deliverers, the delivery boy for the different gifts that they had been. The story that Yoshka would have heard was that this noble family works very hard to to save up extra and then gives it out, and they're leading this resistance, but it's actually a cultural resistance. It's not a direct, like, violent resistance. Based on the stuff they've found, they discovered the quiet moss, and they're among what they call the hidden pines. Um, they have a whole bunch. They've basically been distributing these trees to grow hidden pines and to grow quiet moss, so that each little villages that they trust, after they've kind of scouted out the village, there are a number of criteria that they need to meet to be able to set a village up with something like this. Like, they have to have a very discreet leader, and there has to be sufficient evidence that there's not a rat in the town. Then they kind of set up this hidden place. Like, they're all secluded. They set up a hidden place for this other village, like you saw Garriott's. It was all covered in that moss. Their vision is to set up hidden places around the outer edges of the world that we're in, so that, and they have this idea that the outer edges are the parts of the empire that are crumbling. And so they want to draw a circle and connect these villages all around the outer edges, to draw a circle around the bell, and have these hidden places that share lore and knowledge, so that people can start amassing power, and one, just have some stuff that they care about and like, like stories and stuff. But two, do knowledge shares that where they can tap into all the magic around them, and they trust that that will eventually lead to the downfall of the Iron Bell. Well, let's say they hope. It has not been going. Yoshika would also tell you that his dad has conveyed it has not been going very well. Yoshiko has witnessed firsthand delivering to a number of villages. There's this initial phase that the old blood will do, just being generous and trying to get the attention of the villages if they seem to be peaceable, and then they'll slowly try to develop more trust and withdraw it if they see petty fighting or things like that. And he looks at Diamondback when he says that part. So he basically says, this is a more domestic mission, I realize, but I need to say, I have never met them myself, but all of the good things about me, my father has taught me, and he learned from them. And he kind of probably goes on at length about how the old blood kind of instills something like virtues in the Menowin wayfarers and teaches them, but they talk about it in the term of forgotten strengths, the forgotten strength of waiting for an opportunity. And there are a number of stories and songs about some opportunities only coming once every 20 or 40 years, and you don't know what they are, you have to wait for them, and you have to look for them, not knowing what they are. But and so there's these kind of sparks of hope that are put in a number of the kind of cultural lessons and stories that I imagine at least Yoshika has sung a few stories that he said, this one was from the old blood. Maybe one about a farmer king, a man who was not seeking power at all, but he was very competent and everybody asked him for help and they ended up making him king or something. And he kept his scepter in a hidden box in his farmhouse and just stayed living among the people or something like that. But you can tell from Yoshika's telling of it that the old blood are something like great visionaries. And he mentions Diamondback, he's mentioned this before, but that they have learned a lot because they've been able to keep writings through 4 generations. And so they do a lot of like going out and being invisible and watching and gathering resources around them and learning about them.
Good.
So that's it. Yeah. Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. Give me 1 second. I've got to type them. I've got to type something, so you're gonna hear my keyboard for a second. But all right, there we go. I was typing while you were talking. Okay, great. So Yoshika, that's something that probably would have been conveyed to you over time, right? You over the period of the last week of the travel, you can ask questions, and he's telling you things. As you get there, you're going to find opportunity to talk to Talad and others among the old blood. So let's go ahead and get to that part. For this, Aaron Joy and Jacob, because Talad is the tour guide for the party, kind of, as it were, we'll need to be hearing his input. So maybe maybe Aaron, if you can unmute your mic and audio, and Jacob, you just keep yours muted, or vice versa, and we can both hear off of your mic. Jacob, can you just do me a favor and count to 3?
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, good. Keep your audio muted and your mic muted, Jacob, and then count to 3.
1, 2, 3.
Yeah, that'll work. I just wanted to make sure we could hear you through Aaron Joy's microphone.
Great.
Okay. Sounds good. Let's go ahead and get to Oregon, which y'all don't know by then. Y'all have just found out about it, that they refer to it as Oregon. So setting the scene from last time, if you recall, you found your way to this dome. It's sort of a rocky dome from the outside that has some trees growing on it, but they're a little bit unusual because there's like this prominent stone dome with bits of dirt and some trees just growing straight and tall out of it, like pine trees, something like that. You're not sure. There's a variety of different types of trees, of the forest. As you look around there, excuse me, it's hilly. It makes sense. There are rocks jutting about, and Garrett gave you good directions for how to know when you were, when you were there. You turn at this ravine, you go to this hill, you're going to see these things. And you've made your way from in the low wood for days and days, going through. The days have come with the dappled greens and yellows that you're used to. You found all kinds of curious and strange oddities as you went. Some of you will suspect, Diamondback has his own suspicions that something strange is happening, but this period is actually probably the first time any of you have heard of people being out safely in the woods. Every time that false nights are not common at all. Some of you may never have experienced one, but if you had, especially Neno, who's older, and she may have experienced one previously to this or two in her 80-ish years. It's so dangerous during a false night that people also don't go out afterwards if they can help it, because who knows what's out there. You have this strange experience of not having had to survive outside in much of the false night. You had to for quite a bit of it, and then we're kind of, not unkindly, but we're sort of thrust out immediately after, because the denizens of Miradau couldn't afford a large party of strangers there, if the Iron Bell were to come and find a tribute or something, especially not considering that part of your return to Miradau involved the killing of a significant number of Iron Bell and then the covering up of their deaths, if you recall. Excuse me. And you will remember, everybody, that as you were in, let's see here. Do I have this guy's name here? Nope. Okay. As you were in coming to Miradau, Vorak was outside, I believe. Sorry, I'm going to get rid of Slack so that tick, tick, tick does not come into the audio. Good. As you were outside of Miradau, Vorak was there attempting to get in and get safety within the town. And a part of what your party did was actually at least facilitate their deaths at the hands of both Garriott and also the crazy, horrid monstrosity of the night. So, Garriott sent you on your way with directions. It turns out those directions they appear to be good, because here you are. You poured the wineskin, the water skin of this dark fluid from the barrel. You poured it onto the stone as you were instructed by Garriott to do. And after a few minutes, nothing seemed to happen, but after a few minutes, a young man, Talid, and I'm going to say this the best way that you're able to put your mind to what happened is he came around a corner of nothing. Clearly there was some kind of illusion, magic, or something, but he came around the corner and introduced himself and said that his great uncle Elephine sent him up, that basically when you had poured out that magical fluid, it activated some sort of alert to them inside that there was someone who knew how to get in, who knew how to knock, as it were. And so, you do that and you start coming in. He shows you how to turn this corner. It's a part of the rock where you had walked around looking and nothing happened, but there was a special way of moving that Talad showed you that let you also turn that corner, as it were, and descend into the opening of this cavern. I'm going to switch your screens now. So if y'all have my screen maximized so that you can see what the viewers see, I'm going to show you some atmospherics. These are not intended to be renderings of what you see. As with the other things I've shown you once in a while, it's just for setting mood and giving you a sense. I will also describe them. This will also help me to describe them to the audience, because I'm picturing things certain ways. So let me go ahead and move us over, and let me see if I can. Okay. And I think I need to go like this, maybe. All right. So, you guys turn this corner and you're initially in relatively tight quarters. There's a narrow passageway. Can you see something on your screens, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay, just making sure I was using OBS correctly. There's a narrow passageway that you, I guess, turned into, as far as you can tell, although you kind of descended, it's a little unclear to you exactly what happened for about 5 feet of motion. But you find yourself in this passageway. It doesn't seem ominous, but it is tight, and you wouldn't exactly relish trying to get through here again, or trying to find your way to here again. It's just something where 2 or 3 of you could stand, probably 2 of you could stand abreast and make your way down. It's not easy to traverse, and you get the distinct impression that this is intended to be, difficult, so that people or maybe animals don't just wander in by accident if they happen to know the way to do it. However, you also have the clear and distinct impression as Talad shows you in. He steps behind you all. He kind of skirts back behind you, and he pulls some of these strands of moss down. You're guessing, you've heard before from Garriott and from Yoshka that these have a muting, dampening effect on the detectability of magic, makes them harder to see. And so you're guessing that this is a way of masking the entrance from the outside. But Talad seems to be in good spirits and seems to be a nice young man of about 17-ish years old. And he makes his way back to the front and, invites you to follow him. You move down, and the passage, after a while, the passage kind of opens up and broadens and seems to be a little better lit. It's still hewn out of rock, but they've got, at this point, they've got a place you can go. Sorry, they've got lights up that you can see. You notice that there are several places where you can turn, and Talad seems to know the right way. Part of that, though, you realize is that it's only hard to find your way in, so the turns are going roughly in the direction of going downward. You don't know what the other turns are, but if you were trying to find your way out, it would be pretty obvious you would just keep going the same way you're coming because of the angles of the hallways. Clearly, this seems to have been made to make it harder, if somebody were to find themselves coming in, to make it harder for them to find the true path, as it were. Also, you're not sure even that these other corridors are corridors. The illusion magic is fairly heavy here, and you're glad for it. It gives you the feeling of security that this is not something that people would easily be able to invade. And, it has a sense of being, away, which is nice. 1 second here. My mouse is being funny and I can't change that. Okay. So you travel inward, and after not too long, maybe you traveled for about 5 minutes going inward, and you find that you are... Sorry, I'm collecting my thoughts here. I was having a small technical difficulty. Give me 1 sec. There we go. Is that going to work? Network problem? Maybe, I don't know.
No, is that thing you put in the chat something that Sir Robert should be aware of?
Oh, I can't see anything in the chat.
She says we can't hear you in the living room. I don't know if that was important or not.
Okay, then that informs me that my technical difficulty may be having to do with my network connection here. You guys are able to hear me though, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see if what I just did makes any improvement on that. No, I hope you can hear me. If not, we might have to catch it on the stream, but I think we might have gotten back connected again. Great. Okay. So you come in and you find yourself coming into a broad open area that is very inviting. It's a large dome, a sort of cavern, and to your surprise, there's a bustle of quite a few people. If this is a town, if this is something like the town's square, it's a large town. You see easily a large town for what you've seen. The towns that you've seen a large one in your past experience would have maybe 175 people. That would be one that was well fortified and paid lots of tribute to the Iron Bell. And so, whether you consider them friendly or not, that's up to you. Those other large towns. This one, you know from Yoshka, is isolated from the Iron Bell, so they're not having tribute taken. And but it seems big. The bustle of this area in the 300-foot diameter cavern that you're in. There are walls. All along the walls are various kinds of stalls and little openings and entrances. And there are easily 60 people, 70 people milling about here with entryways to other parts. If you had to guess, you'd estimate that there might be 150, 250 people who live here. It's not an astronomically large settlement, but it is strangely large for your experience of the past. When you come in, you are greeted near the entryway. Talad shows you in, and you are greeted near the entryway by Elephine. He is an older man. Talad comes and shows you. He comes up and he says to the older man, "Here they are. These are the ones who are here." And unfortunately, I have to speak for Jacob right now. But he says, "Here they are. Here's the ones who are here." And this older man greets you. He has a warm smile. "Well, welcome. And then he sees Yoshka. "A Menowin. Your people aren't to be back for a while."
Yes, I got separated. And I think you know my father, though. Petrushka.
"Oh, yes. Yes, indeed. A good man. He's been very reliable. We've had the pleasure of working with him and making good use of his services for quite a while."
Yes, very good.
Well,
I'm honored to meet you.
Well, you flatter me. Well, and he creaks a little bit. He's Talad has introduced him as his great uncle, so you get the impression that he's grandfatherly at least. And he says, "Well, I would be happy to talk with you. In a few days, you can see there's a big bustle," and he gestures around behind himself into this open cavern, and he says, "In a few days, we're having a great celebration. It's a coming of age for a lot of our young ones." And he claps Talad on the shoulder and says, "Some of our fine young men and women are, well," and he looks at Yoshka, unsure perhaps of what you've told your compatriots who are clearly not Menowin. And he says, "Well, our family has some traditions, and our young ones, basically, Yoshka, and I'm going to tell you this, he's hinting at the fact that they're sorcerers. And in this world, right, you can have magic that is according to your bloodline that's inherited. And that's something that's happened here. Yoshka, is that something you would have told? I know you've mentioned that to me, but is that something you would have told this party as you're traveling?
No, I don't think Yoshka knows that.
Okay. Well, then, Elephine seems to suspect that your father would know. He seems to think your father would, but he's kind of beating around the bush a little bit with you. And if you pick it up, great. And if you don't, that's fine. If y'all don't know that. And he says, "Well, we're having a coming of age for these young men and women. We have I think it's 11 this year who are, let's call it, coming into their inheritance as adults in Orevan." Well,
so Yoshka is just astounded, and he's not looking at Elephine right now. He's just looking around and interrupts him a little bit and says, "So this is your family, the old blood?"
Yes.
One family?
The old blood. We sometimes call ourselves that outside. We are the descendants of Oravan. He was, 12, 10 generations ago. He was our great-great-grandfather, as it were, and found this place. It was a smaller cave then. We've expanded it greatly. But yes, he set up here and was able to hide it. Being an accomplished arcanist, he was able to keep secure and safe from creatures of the woods, of the forest, and also, he was able to deal with the other threats.
I have never seen a village this big, let alone a family. If this is your family tree is like one of the great trees above. He's just kind of reveling.
Yeah, it's kind words. If we are like trees at all, we do our best to extend above the ground as far as we can with branches that reach over everything, and below the ground as far as we can to find what there is to find. We do see ourselves something like that. Well, I would love to talk to you more about this, but Talad, I've got preparations to make. Will you take our guests and show them to the guest quarters, and maybe for the next day or so, show them around, let them see what there is to see here. I'm very happy for them to come to the coming of age ceremony. And then he turns back to you, Yoshka, and he kind of glances at all of you and says, "You've come at a very special time, Yoshka. The work that we have had your father and your troop do is coming to fruition now. It will be now is a key time in the unfolding of these things. So we would be very happy to have you come to our ceremony, our celebration. Perhaps you could even, if you're willing, be of some use to us during it. That there are things to do.
Yes, of course.
In the meantime, please, Talad will show you around. He and his sister are both coming of age. They're twins, and he chuckles a little bit. They're both coming of age and will, be happy to show you around. There are some places where you can buy some things and trade with if you have anything of interest. From the world above, we don't really go out too much. And we're also happy to show you some of the things we've been working on. As everything is now culminating, it's a good time for people to understand the work we've been doing.
Very good, very good. And then Yoshka goes over and puts his arm around Talad and says, "Talad, let's go. Let's be friends. We don't know each other yet. Okay. Let's be friends, though. Come on."
Talad agrees and says, "Of course. Let me take you to your quarters, all of you."
So he takes you, he shows you, and I described this before, but it's a nice little, it would be almost like a hostel. It's got bunks of beds, probably enough for 10, but it's big enough to fit you all. And each of you has your own a sort of carve out bunk in the wall where you're able to put any bedding and lay down and sleep. You may do whatever you like with that. Inkatink might choose a top bunk, for example. But you're going to be here for a couple of days. As
Talad, how many brothers and sisters do you have? Do you know all their names?
Talad thinks about it for a while, scratches his neck. I have...
And he would let you know, by the way, sorry, real quickly, he would let you know it's normal for them to have one or two kids in a family, but the larger group of his peers would be in the neighborhood of maybe a 200 right, or sorry, maybe 100 right now of the kids that are 20 and younger.
Yeah. So Talad says, extended family, I have got round 100, but as for siblings, it's only me and my twin sister,
Della.
Della.
Ah, and twins. What a special family. Oh.
Indeed. To my knowledge, we're the only twins.
And so, I have so many questions. How often do you come up top? Do you know what it's like up there?
Actually, he says proudly, kind of like I did something special. That was my very first time at the top, and it was quite exciting.
Oh, you are from the underground and we are from above. We don't even know each other's worlds. Ah, we have so many stories to tell. Do you know how to sing songs down here? I mean, no, that's a stupid question.
Diamondback is looking around and seeing signs of so many different people. And he says to Talad, "Tell me, Talad, do people die here? And when they do you bring them back?"
Well, Talad's like a bit confused about the second part, but he answers the first part. Well, people do die here. I mean, not a lot, thanks to several reasons.
And he also would have like
What?
grandparents who had died or something like that.
Yeah. I don't. Could you explain what bringing them back? We have a morgue, if you would like to see. I don't know why, but I don't know.
Interesting. It was our understanding that the only way that a town could reach a size like this is once the barrier posed by death had been dealt with. You must have some other magic that you use.
Sure. I really don't know that much about that area of the town. My passion is in stone carving, but that's just me.
And Talad gestures towards one area. What you can see around you pretty obviously is they have one area where they're doing various kinds of carpentry. There's a cooper making barrels. You actually recognize the particular barrels. They're interesting and they're kind of distinctive. There's a hallway down there with that. You're not exactly sure where the wood's coming from, but it seems to be all the same kind of wood that you saw in the barrel at Garriott's. You see some what appears to be mining activity where rubble's coming in, and there are masons doing some work on that. Talad gestured towards that point when he was talking about his own interests in working with stone. You can see also there are a few random people acting as tailors and making clothing for the townsfolk. There are a couple of cobblers, some farm activity going on with probably some magical support because the light isn't bright here, but it's not bad. But there's industry of several kinds happening here. They do not have what seems to you to be an extremely well-built infrastructure. It's not like a big machine trying to grow, but it does seem to be peaceable enough, and they are going about their business, and people seem to be largely unconcerned. You do notice that stationed by the entrance, we're going to end in just a moment here, but you do notice that stationed by the entrance where you came in are several guards that are presumably to help if anybody does come in. They're just seated waiting and talking to each other. There are people who are doing things with flowers. You can see quite a few people who are making ready various decorations, and they're taking them off to some other cavern or chamber. You can't tell where, but presumably it's going to be where the ceremony of the coming of age ceremony happens. But you know, it looks both serene and pastoral and alien, perhaps because of, in part, the serenity, in part the peace, but also you really are underground in a certain way. It's likely that you're seeing this mossy, the top of the dome is covered with moss. As a matter of fact, everywhere you look, it's a little spotty or patchy in some places, but it's got a lot of moss growing on it. This special kind of moss, and everywhere you look, you see that, and probably your minds have already started categorizing this as the canopy below. Like you live on their canopy, and they're somehow under you because there's this green above you, right? And you know that if you climb higher through it, you're up to your forest. You've also actually seen, as you know, Talad, as he's shown you around, has pointed out a couple of things to you. For example, and I'm going to just real quickly. For example, he showed you a place where there's a larger cavern that has trees growing in it. That is where they get lumber. It seems to be cultivated and treated well. There seems to also be a place where, you know, there's water that seems to be potable and they can drink from it. And you see all kinds of neat things, places where perhaps they're harvesting the moss or different kinds of, you know, components or flowers or other things. But it's kind of alien in one sense, but you also have a way of relating to it. It doesn't feel like you're in a tight, closed space because you're used to being underneath something that's overhead 50, 60 feet all the time. So we're going to stop there. And by the way, thanks everybody. I really enjoyed this episode, especially that y'all were driving so much of that character development and role play stuff. I really appreciate it. That was a different direction than I thought we were going, but it was better than the one I had ready. That'll allow me to embellish next times to be more appropriate and, you know, feel richer with what you all built this time, which is great. So yeah, we'll stop there for the night. Thank you everybody. Thanks to the listeners for listening, and to the players for playing, and to the onlookers for looking on, and so forth. You can find out more about the Starfall Collective at thestarfallcollective.com. You can find out stuff there about the stories we are telling and the world that we are telling them about, as well as some information about the characters that you are coming to know and love, or know and loathe. Thank you. Have a great night, and we will see you next week, which I think might be after Halloween. It might be our first post-Halloween episode, which spooky. So, well, great. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks.
Fair.